space. It goes towards Overrun. Brilliant save indeed. Walsh has scored. Leicester City are in dreamland now. Vardy in the middle. This could be a huge moment. Vardy scored. And it's pandemonium in Leicester.
Mahrez with his left, Albrighton with his right. It is Mahrez. It's a good ball in. Morgan's there. It's in. Leicester City score. It is a captain's goal from Wes Morgan, who lifted the Premier League trophy in May. He might have played a big part now in taking Leicester City through to the quarter-finals of the Champions League.
Lift the trophy to the skies. Leicester City are the champions of the Premier League. 5,000 to 1.
I had to keep banging my head there. Good evening and welcome back to Blue Ticket Glasses for Fox's Den, Wednesday night Fox's Den. And yet another stream where we don't have any manager news for you, but we're going to talk about something completely different today. So don't worry, I'm sure the manager will come up. Before we get into it, and Neil, what's going on, mate? How are you doing?
All good. Loving all the new BTG content. At least BTG keeps you up to date. The official website and the owners do not.
Yeah, you know, while we were waiting there for it to start, I saw a tweet somebody just sent me, and it was I don't know if anybody saw that thing today with Rachel Reeves, and she's doing this speech, and there's a guy behind her like just looks fed up, and somebody said this is Leicester fans waiting for some managerial news. So there we go. Ethan, first time on Fox's Den. What's going on, mate?
I'm all good, busy with exam season. I wrote my first one yesterday, so yeah, keen to get that out of the way, focus on Leicester for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Ragsy, mate, what's going on with you? Recovering from man flu, you've told us. How are you?
Yeah, on the back end of like a man flu, or maybe it was another COVID bout, and here's me sort of sitting here saying like, oh, COVID's not an excuse. Club can't use that. Well, it's still a bout apparently. So it's, I think it's that. Like a power of deduction and stuff, but I'll troops along through, so I'm sure it'll be all good. But yeah, hope you guys are well.
Good stuff. Right, today I wanted to talk, of course, about next season. I mean, that's what we're going to be doing for the next 3 months, 2 months, whatever, talking about next season while we build up to that. And I want to talk about whether promotion should be the club's priority next season. Now, that might sound stupid to some people. Of course, the club wants to get promoted. That's not the question. It's not whether we want to get promoted, but it's what the priority should be. Now, I'll come to you first, Anil. For me, what I mean by this question is, does the club maybe build a younger squad, which we've already got the foundations for, which might not be ready to fight for the title or promotion straight away? Obviously, points deductions incoming. What's your take on this very open-ended question?
Yeah, my answer to your question would be it depends. So I'm probably sitting on the fence rather than giving you a straight yes or no, because I think it depends a lot on what our circumstances are. There is a great comment here from Tony Smith. Let me bring this up. Promotion has to be the main aim when you see the championship listed with many old Premier teams, but these clowns in charge can't see it happening. And that is 100% true. Like, I think the honest truth is that the financial penalties for not getting into the Premier League are huge. Kate's been sharing some pictures of us in our group chat where basically if you look at the wages to revenue turnover in the championship, it's actually more ridiculous than it is in the Premier League. There are so many teams in the championship that are basically spending 100% or more of their annual turnover on wages, which means they can't spend any more. They're all desperately trying to get into the Premier League because of the riches. So the problem is that the longer that we're not in the Premier League, the more likely it is that we're not going to be able to get in the Premier League because we'll be missing out on that parachute payment. And we've already incurred the wrath of the EFL by trying to cheat our way in the past. So in that sense, I think promotion is the priority. However, as you're kind of suggesting, Locks, if you were going to say that, in that case, get Dyche in, get all these OAPs in, just get up playing the most sort of awful, rank, but grinding out results football just so you can get into the Premier League and then sort out the problem when you get there. But we've already sort of tried that once and that hasn't worked either. So I think, we've been doing these shows last couple of Tuesdays where we've been saying how to fix the club. And that's what I would rather see, to be honest with you. I think that's got to be the priority. We've got to set up the club so that it's going to be good for the future, because, you know, you can have good times and bad times, the highs and the lows. But I really worry with the current regime and the people in charge that it is just kicking the can down the road. I think we're already starting to see it catch up with us big time. And my fear is that we're going to do something even more stupid this summer, and it's going to get even worse.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan, let me come to you next, right? So, you know, we've spoken about this a few times this season, saying things like, did we come up too soon with Enzo Maresca? You know, would it have been more beneficial to maybe have an extra year down there and, you know, keep building this squad and maybe build a squad that is ready to actually then go up to the Premier League? And we find ourselves in the same situation now on this show, what we're talking about, Ethan. What do you think? Would it be beneficial maybe to take a bit longer and maybe build a squad that is going to be able to adapt from the Championship to the Premier League?
Look, I think I'm also with Anil on this one. You know, it depends, right? Obviously, you want to sort the PSI issue first because that's obviously going to keep going on and on as long as you don't address it. So I think promotion doesn't hurt that. I think if you get promoted, you know, the money helps. But yeah, it depends. I think last season we can give the ownership a bit of a pass because you don't expect your manager who, you know, implements a really different system to what other managers do, and you know, you can sort of give them a pass for that. But it really needs to be right this season. This decision that they make now has to be the decision that they stick with for the next couple of years. You know, it depends as well who we can sell. If we can sell our, you know, deadwood and promote youth through also just recruit well in general. I think we need to see who's in charge, what players a year, and what other teams do as well, because you don't know what Wrexham and Birmingham coming up will do. So I think we'll know if it's a priority as soon as more business starts getting done, but we'll see how long that takes.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you this, Ragsy. There's a comment here from Ben, and he says, if we clear out the squad, lower the wage bill and average age, and finish in the top 8, knowing we're well placed for the 26-27 season, that by the way, that makes me feel so old, like 26-27 season already, crazy. That would be a very positive season. Would you agree with that, Ragsy?
It's difficult to say. In theory, yes, because you can then clearly see, okay, you know what, the club are going in the right direction. They're implementing the right initiatives to go and build solid foundations for us to not only get promoted, but do it in the right way, where once we reestablish ourselves in the Premier League, we can sustain that status. And that's what the main objective is over the longer term. If we're thinking in the shorter term, which clearly I feel the board's players, staff are currently thinking, their short term is they're not really caring about all that. They just want to get promoted because it brings that status to them. People will get like off the hierarchies back. Players will have that status and feel like they can belong in the Premier League. And more importantly, the finances. They'll get like a boost in bonuses. They'll like more money will be distributed to staff and whatnot. But yeah, we've got to really look at this setup and see where it's failing and just have a complete reset in terms of how we're thinking about this. The only problem is if we go down this route, let's be honest, are we really going to be like, our fans really going to be patient with this? Because we feel so let down by this current hierarchy, thinking we should be a Premier League club and that is where we belong. So we can't really sort of go and sustain like 2 or 3 years in the Championship. And not only that, having further financial implications upon us and the lack of parachute payments to be able to go and recover this and keep the assets that we've got, keep the top players in the Championship that we've got, and use that to eventually get to that stage where we can be promoted with a proper team. Unfortunately, when you put it into practice, I don't think it's going to work out that way. So as much as I'd like to see it, I think like just the way that the Championship and the EFL is set up and the wage structures and all the financial implications, I just don't really see that coming into reality.
Well, Ragsy made he said a very important word there, Neil. and it was patience. And I think he's probably right. Like, we might be sat here, or I might be sat here, and I know you might be in there thinking, okay, like the comment said, if we get the wages down, if we reduce the average age of the squad, if we put ourselves in a good standing for the future, and we don't go up, if we do all of those things behind closed doors, that's a good season, as long as we don't get relegated. However, Ragsy's right, Anil. There will be large numbers of the fan base extremely angry that we haven't then, given it a good go at actually trying to get up. Do you know what I mean? We will be trying to get up, right? That's irrelevant. We will be trying to get promoted. But my point is that if they prioritize the other things, then there will be a lot of angry people, I think.
Yeah, I've got to say, my missus always has a go at me if I'm not making an effort to try and keep it up. So that is something we've got to keep in context here, I think, as a fan base. So there's my joke for the day. But you can clip that. But well, look, first things first, we're probably going to have massive points penalty, right? So the thing is that might be the best thing that we can hope for anyway. Rags had to turn off the camera, falling about laughing. Absolutely. Yeah, look, if we have a massive points penalty, then I don't think we're going to be able to get promoted anyway. Right? I can't get it up. We'll get promoted anyway. That's an issue. I get what you're saying there, but I think, look, some people are always going to be like that. But I think, I think people who are reasonable realize what the sort of situation here is, right? And unfortunately, it's going to come back for many years to come. But the club's failure to sack Brendan Rodgers fast enough has unfortunately put the club back at minimum, probably, I wish, probably 10 years or something like that. Because I think the problem is that, like, I think we can get caught in a trap where you try desperately to get back up and then you do manage to do that, but then you're not good enough to stay up. And then you're going to start finding yourself yo-yoing. And then the problem is that when you yo-yo, eventually there's going to be a season where you can't make it promotion back to the Premier League, and then you're really stuck because you haven't got the long-term infrastructure in place. So for me, I understand that. I think it's more important now than ever that you've got to be like, clubs have to be well run, and if you're not well run, then I don't think you're gonna have any chance, unless you're just gonna somehow cheat code it and you've got some way of basically give yourself some financial doping. Like if they're clever enough to do what Chelsea did, and I don't know, you sell the training ground to Leicester City ladies team that also happens to be owned by King Power or something like that. If you can pull some tricks up like that, but look, I would say that all this cheating in the past has come back to haunt us. I don't think we need to do that. So for me, I think that I would be happy with that. I mean, interestingly, I actually said on the Beyond the 90 channel, it used to be around ages ago with Neil, that when we got relegated, I said, you know what, even if we don't get promoted under Enzo, if I see that like we've making a more modern team, the style of players looking good to give us a good chance when we get promoted, I actually wouldn't be against it. Of course, if it takes longer than 2 seasons, then I would be. This time round, I think it's going to be forced on us. But that said, the title of the stream is promotion a priority, but you kind of jokingly mentioned it, and I think it is more than a joke. And it could be, instead of is promotion, it could be is survival the priority next season. And you might think, well, oh my god, what a doomer, how can you possibly suggest that, right? But we've literally seen it happen with Luton. Now, at the moment, we do have a much better squad, but the thing is that they did not go into the season with a massive points penalty or under pressure to sell all of their best players. They actually managed to retain most of them. Of course, they did lose Ross Barkley, but he only had a 1-year deal anyway. And that kind of does worry me, because the thing is that, okay, let's say we start the season on minus 12 points. That's already quite a depressing thing. That's going to affect players who might want to come along. There might be some young up-and-coming talents. You'd be thinking, well, hang on a minute, why am I going to go to Leicester if I could go to Southampton or, Ipswich instead? Because they're more likely to get promoted. I'm going to have to play 2 seasons in the Championship here at minimum. So that affects you. And then, then the club vibe, we will even be talking about itself. We'll be doing our pre-season predictions and we'll be like, yeah, well, I think we're probably going to finish 7th or 8th or 9th. And that already sets your stance low. And then it's like, okay, instead of finishing 9th, you actually finish 14th. Like, well, it's not a disaster, is it? And everything keeps sliding on a sliding scale. And the next thing you know, and it reminds me a little bit of that 22-23 relegation season where first it was like, oh my God, all right, well, why aren't the clubs spending any money? Oh, don't worry, lads. We always spend in the summer. It's coming. That we're just going to like pull off some amazing deal near the end of the window. That didn't happen. Then it's like, oh, Wesley Fofana's going. Oh, well, don't worry. We'll definitely sign some players now. Sign Wild Face for like hardly any money. And think, well, there's like 60 million still left there. We're going to spend that, right? No, we didn't. right? And they say, oh, okay, well, do you know what? Because we pushed a bit hard to get to Europe this season, don't worry about it. You know, we won't finish in Europe, but we'll get rid of all these players at the end of the season. We'll build back in the 23-24 season. That's how it started. And then it got worse and worse and worse. It's like, we just got to survive. We've just got to hang on. And then we got relegated. So I do have a little bit of a fear that something could happen, because the one thing we've got coming this time round that we haven't had in a long time is a points deduction, and it's going to be a heavy one, and it's going to have massive impacts on everything we do.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan and Neil mentioned their survival. You know, is obviously he said it loosely. You know, is survival the priority? But this is the championship lineup for next season. So, you know, you've got the likes of Ipswich and Southampton there, of course, and then Sheffield United, who were relegated from the Premier League the season before. And then you have big spenders, Wrexham and Birmingham, who are coming up, who are trying to be competitive and spend a lot of money and trying, you know, I'm sure they'd love to go back to back like Ipswich did. It is going to be a hell of a tough season, Ethan, and some have suggested that it's even more difficult than the one last season when we were there. I'm not so sure on that. I think it's pretty close. But yeah, what do you make to this lineup? I mean, do you think it's going to be tougher than last time round?
Well, I think for us, yeah, definitely. I think compared to who was at Leeds and Sunderland, I think yeah, you have a lot more competitive teams. You don't normally have like a 4 or 5 teams that are sort of just way better than the rest. So yeah, it will be interesting. It's important to note Sheffield, they had like a 20-point difference when they were in third. So you can make up 12 points. There are a lot of games. But the thing is, are the people in charge going to put in the right sort of pieces? Are they going to appoint the right manager, or are they going to trust Ruud? Whoever the manager is he going to try and completely dominate the ball, but, you know, sort of sacrifice a style of play that will see us more successful in the Premier League? Will youth players come through and will they hit the ground running? There's a lot of questions to be asked, really, but I think it will be tough. I think you have Derby and Coventry there as well. Coventry also were pushing for promotion, and I think when you look at it, it's going to be way more difficult. I think you have a lot more difficult fixtures, right? But I mean, we saw how we played against Ipswich and Southampton. Granted, relegation was already sort of there, so it wasn't the most sort of groundbreaking discovery or realistic match that we could take from. But I mean, we saw that we can compete against the upper end championship teams. The question is now, are we going to be able to do that over a course of a season, especially because we don't really have the squad depth. We have the youth coming through, and that's good. But I mean, players like Cody Vestergaard, you know, they're only going to get worse over time. Ayew, Deco Dover-Reed, are they going to really just bring a fighting spirit to the team? Are they going to be able to get output in the championship after 20 game weeks or so? Their legs are going to be gone. But I think, yeah, if we do really good business this summer, I think everything comes down to this summer, right? If we stick with Ruud, what is he going to do to really prove himself? If we go with someone like a Danny Roll, what sort of systematic changes is he going to bring into the club? Are we going to see Monga and Evans be starting, or are they still going to be bench players? You know, the people coming back from loan. Hamza, is he going to stay? He's been linked away. Is Ben Nelson going to come back and hit the ground running? Wanya Marcel's also been on loan. He's coming back. So, you know, it's a opportunity. I think rather than doom and gloom, I think it's an opportunity for the board to really put their foot down and really set out a vision for the next 5 years or so. But that really comes down to them and their decision making.
Yeah, I mean, Ragsy, there's a comment here from Craig who says we have a good chance of promotion. And I think, you know, on the face of it, yes, of course. You know, we're going to have top 3 squads in the championship next season. But as Anil said, let's say we are slapped with I'm not going to go overboard. Let's just say 10 points. Let's just say 10-point deduction, right? Let's say we're slapped with a 10-point deduction at the start of next season. We start on minus 10 points. That has got to be a killer mentally for those players as well, knowing that they have to win 3 and draw 1 just to be on 0 points. Crazy.
Yeah. Here's the worry for me is that this rot that's spread into the club for so long, we really do have a bunch of fragile, weak, pussy ass players like in this squad, and they are pathetic. Like the fact that the thing is, the fact that we avoided a points deduction this season, and we all sat here thinking, oh my God, this is amazing news. Okay, now we can all galvanize and G each other up and kick on. Did absolutely nothing towards morale and stuff. And I looked at it at the time when we first got relegated as well. And you looked at the players that we were bringing in, and they were just like, oh, yeah, championship is just going to be a 1 season thing. I can hack it for 1 season. That's cool. So, and also we brought in Enzo like relatively quickly. Like I know Russell Martin was brought in pretty much as soon as Southampton got relegated and stuff. And we're thinking, okay, we could try and speed things along a bit. But we were still a lot more
16th of June, Enzo Maresca
yeah,
came
16th of June. So like, and then Daniel Farker was like appointed like a couple of weeks later. So they didn't really have the pick that we did with Enzo. But because of the lack of clarity on the manager at the minute, because you've got like experienced players that have also been part of this sort of resurgence, like under Enzo, that were there initially for the plan, hoping that they were going to retain Premier League status. Also knowing the fact that in that season that we got promoted in the Championship, no Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, who was by far and away our best player, no Jamie Vardy, who, whatever you say, what you want to say at the time, was our top Championship scorer, no Enzo, who practically was a visionary and was like why we were all so inclined to see, like, you know what, it was a really good season and we feel like we can really go and kick on in the Premier League. And we've somehow ended up this season with an even worse squad in quality, with an even less market value, less lower value assets to go and sell. So when we're looking at this team, when we're being relegated the second time, it's significantly worse than when we previously went down. So this is the worry. And I don't think, look, you look at the quality in the Championship and stuff, and there is still a bit of a gap. So, but when you talk about mentality and when you talk about still trying to achieve that remit, and you're thinking for this group of players that are fragile as it is, it's too much for them to go ahead and do. It almost like they almost get swallowed in that sort of like big expectation, thinking they need to step up. And the worry is, we could be a Luton. You can't sit here and write off. Did we think like at the start of the season, like when we first got relegated after Brendan Rodgers, when we finished 8th, that we get relegated the following season? None of us thought it at all. So you can't write it off.
Let me ask you this, Anil. Do you, because the club will have, they'll have advisors and stuff, and Nick DeMarco and people like this, they'll have a rough idea on how many points we're due to get deducted if all goes to the plan, EFL's plan. Do you think how many points we're going to get deducted will play a factor in who they appoint as the manager? Because if it was something like 5, 6 points, maybe they do go for like a Danny Roll or someone younger. But if it is 12 and some people are saying 15, 16, that would be disastrous. Maybe at that point they do have to go for a Dyche, and there's not many people that want him. But do you think depending on how many points are deducted, that might play a part in which manager they choose?
100% is possible. And I think that could be one of the reasons why behind the scenes we're seeing such a lack of communication, because maybe themselves they're scrambling and they don't really know where they're going to go, or they're trying to make like 2 or 3 different plans to see what's going to be the situation. I want to bring up this comment from earlier because unfortunately this, I guess, is where my sort of doomer approach is. He goes, you basically described the years after second relegation in the early 2000s ending in Holloway in League One. And what people might forget is that at that time as well, we did have like a golden era. Like Leicester got to Wembley 3 times in 4 years. We won 2 cups with Martin O'Neill. We were playing in Europe. We had a good team, good players, heading all in the right direction. And you just felt like, Leicester's going to be in the Premier League for ages. It is a club on the up. And a couple of bad decisions, couple of players left. and it all went south very, very quickly. Now, I think the big difference, and this comes to the question that you asked me, is that I think then the issue is that like we had real financial pressure in the sense that people who owned the club didn't have money. The issue this time around isn't that the owners don't have money, even though I've got a feeling they might be losing a lot behind the scenes, but more that they can't deploy the money. That's a bit different. So that I think is always going to give you an edge, because especially in this division in the Championship, you've literally got teams with owners that have nowhere near the finances. I mean, we talked about Danny Roll at Sheffield Wednesday, for example. They spent 3 million last season to finish 12th. We will probably, even with a points deduction, be spending like 5 million minimum on one player. So you're going to have a much better squad as a result of that. So I think because of that, I do think it is unlikely that we would double dip. Of course, the Luton thing is a thing that terrified me. I can't understand really how that happened, given that they had those parachute payments to make and they had January to fix it and they still couldn't do it. What is wrong with them? Not quite sure. And I would also say as well, though, that, you know, you can, in the Championship, although you want to get people that are sort of young and hungry, ultimately, if Leicester say we're going to give you 10,000 a week and Preston North End can only offer you 2,000 a week, it's a very easy decision to make where you're going to sign, regardless of how old you are or how hungry you are. So we're always going to have that edge, and we can also probably pick up loan players as well. So that should be all right. But your question about the manager, yes, we might have to do something like that. And I think the thing that I do get scared of is look at how pretty much all the managers that we're linked with, other than Danny Roll, he's the outlier. They tend to be managers that there isn't a fee to pay in terms of compensation. That was also the case with Ruud van Nistelrooy. It's why Russell Martin was highly linked. You know, we've just mentioned that Michael Carrick got signed by Middlesbrough, and all of a sudden that's another manager that's got Championship experience that could work for you for free. And that's going to appeal to them. And you've got to ask why. Why is the most important job, arguably, in the club being given to someone like that? But Imran kind of said this as well, which is that, you know what, the manager you have is probably not going to make that much of a difference in the Championship with your squad. I'd actually argue the most important appointment would be a director of football, which is, you know, been the theme of the show. So I don't think I think it would be a mistake to just get one of those people that are experienced and know the old game. I think we've got to be getting someone who has understanding of what modern football is to develop the younger players, because I think at minimum we're probably going to have to sell some of our stars just to make some more money. So I think the worst thing in my opinion actually is we hire a manager who just does what Cooper did at the beginning of the season, doesn't use Fatawu or something stupid like that. Because, you know, if we're not playing Jeremy Monga, he's definitely going to leave, right? We need to get people like him, Evans, some of the other young players into the team, develop them. Because as I said, we turned down 12 million for Casey McAteer because we're mental. But this time round, we don't need to make those mistakes. We can sell a couple of those players. It will be sad to watch homegrown academy stars go, but at least it keeps the club going.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan, I'll come to you next, mate. You know, a similar question. You know, the club, and maybe it is one of the reasons why things seem so quiet. You know, and they're delaying things. Maybe they want to kind of gauge how heavy a points deduction they're gonna be ending up with, and of course that will affect, you know, not just the manager, but then also the planning for next season. Because as I said, Ethan, like if it is, let's just say under 10 points, 10 or under, you would think the club could still get playoffs with that. Actually, you'd say they probably will still get playoffs with that if it's 10 points. And the reason I say that, and it was very oversimplified in our chat the other day, wasn't it, Anil, by Michael, who said, was it Sheffield United, if you took 20 points off them, they'd have still finished 5th? So that might not be the case this time round. But if it is over 10 points, Ethan, again, it's looking really, really difficult that we could break into that top 6.
Yeah, no, I think, like Anil said, the manager really doesn't matter, right? The quality of the players is high enough to, you know, regardless of how they play, to get results. I will say, though, Ragsy said the mental strength as well isn't the best. And what could a points deduction do to the mentality of those players? How will they react, you know? I think if you have younger players, they'll play with a bit more freedom. They'll sort of, you know, disregard it because they still have their whole career. The more experienced, the older players, they're looking at the situation saying, oh, if I don't overcome this, or if I don't leave, then, you know, my career is going to waste. So, you know, I think the points deduction will affect people differently. I think it's always going to go back to who's in charge, right? Who can instill a desire to play well. but I think there's still a really good chance of top six. If we get say a 12, 15 points deduction, it's just a matter of how we go about, initially getting those points back, right? Because you don't want to see your team at the bottom of the table, -12, -15 points. That plays on you. But say we play the first 4 games, right? We have 12 points on the board, and only then we get the points deduction. We've already got some game time. We already understand that, okay, we're better than everyone. So I think when we get the points deduction will also matter. But no, I think top six is possible. But it all comes back down to the top level decision making. Are they going to be good enough to inspire and really create a motivation throughout the club? Right down to the fans, that this is where the new plan starts. This is the process that we're going to follow, and we want your backing. We need your backing, and that translates to the players on the pitch. That translates to back to the board. They feel a bit more confident. They can take a bit more risks now. And yeah, but a points deduction, it depends when we get it. It depends who's in charge. But I think the team is good enough to get a top six finish if we get a -12, -15 points deduction.
Rags, I mean, a lot of the thing in my mind right now as well, talking about next season and what should be prioritized and things like this, is my mind comes back to communication, transparency. Some of the examples that Anil used recently as well, like the Aston Villa example, where their board, after selling Grealish, they came out and explained their plan. And if the club came out and actually spoke to the fans about how difficult next season's going to be with potential deductions or business plans, whatever it might be, and they let the fans know that what our priority is to put the club in a good standing for the future, people would be quite understanding of that, I think, because it would show that they're trying to fix the problems that they've created. But you know what it's like, Rags. We won't hear a peep. And no matter who they appoint, no matter who they sign, no matter who they sell this summer, we're going to hear absolutely fuck all from them.
Well, you heard something today. May not be what you want to hear. With their post regarding the season ticket renewals. Season ticket renewals have now sold out. So it shows you where their heart truly lies with it. And then in a small sentence there, being like, we appreciate the fan support and look to build to the future. Just in one sentence. No clarity on the whole situation. No update in regards to the financial implications. No plans being laid out in terms of how we're going to project our vision coming to the future. No clarity upon who on earth our manager is going to be next month. It's been 6 weeks since we've been relegated. Over 6.5 weeks since we've been relegated. And these guys at the top, nothing. And why are they saying nothing? Because first of all, they're out of their depth. They don't have a clue on how they can go about and fix this. And we keep on being drawn back to the fact that Top has good intentions and stuff, and I'm not denying that, but so do 99% of owners out there. We all want a Ferrari, we all want a Porsche 911. But at the end of the day, if I'm sat on my couch and binge watching Netflix and stuff, I ain't gonna get that Porsche 911. Okay, what matters is what you are willing to do. Well, maybe. Maybe BTG can help me out here. You never know, little benefits and stuff. But anyways, it's what are the means? What are you willing to do to go and make it happen? How do you go out there and manifest it? I saw Anil stream and stuff, and it's like how you can manifest things like Vichai did and said, within the space of 3, 4, 5 years, we're going to be in the top 5 in the Premier League. And not only did he project that for them, he made it happen, in terms of what he was planning out there and doing. And at the minute, we don't see a vision. We don't know what this club's status is going to be like in the next 5, 6 years. So, and the least they can do, and we saw it from a statement, and even then we understood it, and it all turned out to be a bunch of lies when it came to after losing Schmeichel, selling Fofana, not buying Lookman, and at the end of a disastrous summer window, they came out with a statement pretty much before the deadline and gone, yeah, like this is all just to secure the long-term finances for the future. And what happened in that season, we breached PSR anyway, so it didn't even matter, like their efforts to go and do it. Not for once can they just come out here, be honest with the fans, just communicate what's wrong in any sort of way. We're not asking for a whole like press conference that needs to be broadcast from the clock tower. Just a statement, just outlining what has gone wrong, owning up to it, and seeing out the plans as to how we move forward from this and what is their plan to go and rectify their mistakes. But the problem is they don't have a clue how to fix this.
Anil, I've just seen a tweet from Jake Watson from Big Strong Leicester Boys. It was in response to an article that was written about, Leicester City have nowhere to hide this summer. The overspend on wages, the poor recruitment, the strategic feelings, supporters deserve to learn how recovery will be planned. He replied, Jake said, no plan or strategy is being communicated because there isn't one to communicate. And that does feel, that does feel like that is the case, Anil.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I felt so compelled to make those shows that we did, because I see right through it. It's an absolute farce, as Ragsy says. And I've been saying this to everyone. It's like that comment I brought up earlier. It's like we are being treated as customers. It's completely against what I think a football club should be, right? Believe it or not, there is going to be some connection between the owners and the fans. I keep saying it because of what the current ownership did for Leicester. They actually have more credit in the bank than anyone else. Wow, you can respond to that if you want. I mean, there are some fans that are like that, but I think more genuine fans wouldn't be. But of course, you always get some people like that. But someone else wants to comment that.
Do you know what? Like, you talk about customers. This is the fucking King Power customer that laps it up, along with Ian Stringer, of course. But like, this is why, like, do standards not matter to fans anymore? Like, do we sit here and invest our time and just because we're fans, we have to lap up the shit that they throw at us. Like, just because this platform was sit here and created like over the past season, like this channel is where we can all voice our opinions. You were sitting here telling me 5 years ago how irate and how just toxic toxic to an extent, but like how much I'd want this ownership out and how much I want change around here. I'd be sitting here and if you were to sit here and I'd be at this level of anger with this hierarchy 5 years ago, I'd have been like, get lost, Ragsy. Honestly, you're off your fucking nut. But then if you sat down and explained to me all the things that have been happening like under this ownership and the decisions they've been making and the money that they've wasted, then you'd sit here and tell me, bloody hell, like what on earth has been going on? And there's been no answer for it. No one to stand up and take some accountability for a change. So am I not allowed to be livid at that? Am I not allowed to sit here at 2 relegations in the space of 3 years and think that, somehow I've got to sit here and accept it?
Let me tell you a story. Dexter was hidden from commenting because he was being an absolute bozo and a knob about 3 months ago. And every now and then I give people second chances. I unban them. Ragsy, hold on. Ragsy, hold on. Hold on. I unbanned him literally 4 days ago because I thought, look, maybe he's not being a knob anymore and he's coming with shit like this.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's I'm chasing. Okay, why are you here then? Why are you here trying to get a reaction then? Honestly, fuck me.
Well, he's got the reaction, but I was the reason I brought his comments up is because it could be John Rudkin, it could be his burner account, to be fair. No, what Dexter wants us all to do. What Dexter wants us to all do is sit back and say, well done, King Power, for winning the Premier League 10 years ago. Well done for winning the FA Cup. Take us down to League 2. It's absolutely fine. No planes, no banners, no booze. Anyway, regardless, right, let's move on. He's gone. Yeah. He's gone again. Dexter, this is why we can't have nice things, man. I gave you a second chance to get some nice comments in. You started nice and you turned into a knob.
Well,
again.
There you go.
Anyway.
He got his minute of fame getting a reaction out of me. There you go. Well done. There you go. Off you pop. You're going ahead with your miserable life. Anyways.
Anyway, Yeah. So yeah, let me come to you, Ethan. Again, just touching on what we were just talking about, the communication. Obviously, going back to it. I feel like we will never know what the priority is. We will never know what the club are trying to do with the squad, in the long run, because they just don't speak to us, and it will all be guesswork. They could hire Danny Roll, and we'll be none the wiser whether that's an appointment to just get us back up straight away, or if it's an appointment for the long term.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys play FM, but
Yeah.
at the start of
Oh,
every
yeah.
season, they give you a 3 to 5 year vision, right? 24, 25, 25, 26. And I think that clarifies a lot, right? You go for this coming season, right? Either you want to fight for winning the championship, or you want to fight for promotion, or you just want to finish top 8, right? Set realistic goals, right? I think there's ever since we won the Premier League and the FA Cup, they haven't really set any goals, right? They haven't said, "Oh, we're gonna push for top 8, or we're gonna push for Europe," or this season we weren't able to spend as much. We're gonna push for a top half finish. We don't really hear that from them. We don't hear that from the managers, or we don't hear that from the players, right? So I agree with you that we won't know if Sean Dyche comes in, if he's there just to stabilize the team, to take us back to the Prem. Is he going to be with us long term or short term? These are all really valid questions that need to be answered. And as the fans, we're just not getting any answers, right? What I will say is, for the fans, you have to understand their frustration. You're being left in the dark. You commit your time, your money, to see this and to support it, and you're not being repaid, right? If you are going down that customer route, right, we're all stakeholders, right? So
Yeah.
if we invest our time and money into the club, we want to see returns, right? We want to see either good performances, or we want to see good football. And when you're not getting any of that, the fans are going to get upset, right? And the only people that can really be held accountable is the top management, the manager, and to an extent the players, right? If a player like Forrest is just scoring own goals for fun, you're looking at him and saying, why are you here? What I will say, like, to end off, right, is we need a vision, we need a plan, we need a mission. We want to take Leicester back into the top 6. We want to break the top 6 mold, right? We saw Aston Villa, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest do it this season. Brighton are pushing, Brentford are pushing, right? We need to see a vision. We need to have a mission in place, right? And it doesn't mean that we need to aim unrealistically high. The mission right now could be, we want to just reestablish ourselves in the Premier League, right? We want to finish mid-table in 3 years' time, right? Have this season to build a squad, get a manager in place, sort of lay the groundwork. Next season, we want to just survive. And then in year 3, we want to finish mid-table, or we want to finish above 14th, right? I think that calms down the fans. They say, okay, it's going to take a while. There, the fan patience comes into question. But as a fan, if you see that, you have something to understand and get behind, right? You don't ask yourself questions and sort of overthink it, or you're not sort of detaching yourself from the club. You're on this journey with the club through this 3-year vision.
But yeah, mate, I totally agree. I mean, just quick, I think this is your currency, Ethan. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
What does that mean? ZAR? What is that?
The South African rand.
There we go.
Oh,
So yeah, big shout out to The Vision. What a name. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Is this somebody you know, Ethan?
Yeah.
Keep it easy. There we go. Another one there. Thank you so much, The Vision. Yeah, I was going to say, Ragsy, we've got the likes of Monga, we've got the likes of Jake Evans, and if we go a bit further, Ben Nelson and Casey McAteer, and it's something I said at the very start of the show, but there is the foundations there to now build a new Leicester City that is more focused around youth, and we did seem to be, we have done that before previously, but that was set back by Mr. Cooper, and he was given the keys to the the Leicester City transfer kitty, but there are now the foundations to go back and start with the youth. And I'm not saying start Monger and start Evans every game, but we can definitely build something there with the younger players.
No, absolutely. There's like I think it's been touted as like one of the best sort of academy sort of like crop of players that I think we've ever had. So to promote that into the team and thinking like yeah, exactly. Like you'd want that's how you can sort of like endear to some sort of identity with this club, especially when you see like kids in and around the area coming through our academy and then getting that chance to play. It's sort of it hits home a lot more, and so like you feel a lot more endeared, and you just have that connection to the like these kids and stuff, and you want to see them progress and grow, and you just take a lot more care into their sort of like careers and how they, and you want to push them to try and get them into the first team, and that can like really gravitate your support towards them. So I'm not sitting here going like, you know, just field the whole under 21s as much as I wanted to this season, but have them like, you know, dotted in and around the squad. What I want to sort of see is, yes, okay, look, you still have the first team options. Mavadidi's going to be starting. So is Fatawu. So is, you know, like whoever, like goods that we can keep that's going to be in the first team. And probably still Archie going to be the goalkeeper, whoever we can go out there and retain. But in terms of competitive options, like give them some real competition, give them a position to go and look to, make them competitive members of the squad, not just, you know, there to add up numbers. Like our sort of whole mindset and how we treat the youngsters, I think just really needs to change around here. Not look at them as just kids, but just take them seriously and let them be the competition to Mavadidi and Fatawu. Because, like, you know, it's not really going to bump up the competition if you got like an IU that's going to be back up, or like, let's say if IU starts like over them and like, you know, because they've clocked up more miles on their like CV or something, like, and you look to read and stuff like they're at the latter end of their careers. They're not going to be as motivated. Like with the youngsters, like we say it time and time again, like they've got a point to prove. They still want to go ahead with their careers and go and make something of themselves, and they'll be hungry to prove that. And they'll be like, whatever sort of situation that we land ourselves in next season, they just want to go out there and play, and they just want to grasp every single opportunity that they can. So it just seems a healthy way to sort of like look at this, promote them into the team, and really like, yes, okay, it can be hampering and stuff if you put them into a challenging environment, but look at the pluses, look at the wins that you could get from it. Like if they develop and do well, that they become assets that we can sell them on. That like allows us to sustain our wealth and then go and reinvest that back into the team. So it's a never-ending contingency plan when you look at it. So if we approach it with that mindset, then I feel we can only benefit from it. Like obviously like it will be up to the manager to sort of like whether he thrusts and full him at the deep end or not. But you know, I think we've got to have the whole point is we've got to have a director of football that's going to implement that and be like, look, this is the way it's going to be. Like we can't sort of like look to the short term with like the older guys and stuff. I looked to Neil's video with his clip that he sent of Edu, and like Eddie's just nailed it on the head in terms of like how you want to sort of sit here and think as a director of football. And the problem is that we've got a director of football that gives the manager too much of a say. Now it's very different when they've clocked up 3-4 years of success. Like, you know, maybe you could sit here and give a bit of control to the likes of a Brendan, maybe, because, you know, he was like the first 2 years, he did very, very well for us. But when you literally allow Cooper in through the door, who your owner didn't even want, and you back him with 18, 90 million pounds worth of players that ended up being a load of crap. That's where you're like, you know, you're not strong enough as a director of football to go and implement a philosophy. And that's why it's never, ever going to work out in the long run.
You muted, Locks.
Sorry. Blame Dexter. No, let me ask you this, Anil, right? Because Ethan touched on it, you know, we've all touched on it at some point about how being treated like customers and all of that. You know, there can only be 17. We all know this. There can only be 17 teams that stay in the Premier League every year, or you know, every season. So, you know, just because we buy our whoever buys their season ticket, they're not it's not a demand that we have to be in the Premier League. But I think what people what people want to see in Nil is they want to see a club that are doing absolutely everything they can to be in the Premier League. They want to see an owner who is fully committed to having their team in the Premier League. And I think, the concern, because I know Catanil always says, it's not my club, I can't demand anything. If you're not happy, don't go, which is a fair comment. But I think people that spend the money, they can expect the owner of the club, the owner of the business, to put the club first. And at the moment, that's not what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have quite a strong stance on that because I do think that compared to other fan bases, I think we definitely are very apathetic. Fans don't like to get involved. We see other fan bases, sometimes they can go the other way. But I remember this is crazy actually, Everton at one point, they were going to get the guy who's now Victor Pereira was going to be their manager. And they were like, who is this guy? So they put all this massive protest and they got Frank Lampard in instead. They might be regretting that decision, to be honest with you. But that genuinely happened. Whereas with us, it's never really been the case. We will kind of just do what is accepted. Look, that's fair enough. You can't tell people what they should or shouldn't do. But, you care for the club. And as I say, I think the problem is, in my opinion, I think we should be demanding at minimum. It's not even the results on or off the pitch. We should be demanding that the ownership speak to the fans. That, for me, is actually the single most fundamentally flawed thing about Leicester compared to other clubs, right? Which they don't do. And it's taking the piss. There's no other ways of saying it. I think that's going to be a way that if it continues going that way, it's just going to continue ending with some sort of activity like this because people will have had enough. I think in terms of then, what's going to happen. I mean, it's a tricky situation, isn't it, in terms of what that's going to mean for us and what we can demand. But it could end up nasty, is I guess what's happening. Like I say, I mean, it did ultimately ended last time round with owners changing. It has happened a few times with Leicester. Could it happen again? Maybe. I mean, what you really want to avoid is a situation. Have you seen the Valencia owners where they really don't care about the fans, and there's some sort of massive divide. It's quite a horrible situation that you see in there. You hope it doesn't happen, but what happens if it does?
Yeah, I mean, there's a comment here from It's Niam. You spend the money because you're addicted to it. As you guys spoke about the other day, I'd never wish supporting a football club upon anyone, especially Leicester. Yeah, it's like, complaining about the police and then saying you can't go to another it's the police, right? It's like, we can't just go to, we're not like Doc pulling out Chelsea shirts in Copenhagen.
Well,
left, right,
you say that, but if they I mean, I would never do that, but if you treat fans like customers, that is what's going to happen because you're not building up that bond, which is going to go away. And the thing is that, they have to look at it. I mean, the fact is, if they are trying to treat the fans as customers, then from a business point of view, they've done an absolutely horrific job because the value of Leicester City Football Club has completely plummeted. This is a team that finished 5th, 8th FA Cup winners, then got relegated, 2 relegations in 3 years. Like right now, I imagine that Ethan, one of the reasons why he's a fan of Leicester is some of the amazing things that the club achieved in, let's say, the early 2000s, 2010s, right? If your team is just constantly just another team in the championship, you're not going to get those fans. That means the commercial value goes down. That means that as a business, you've distressed your asset value. It means that you're not doing a good job. As I say to you, I mean, we have this chat quite a lot, but many businesses, you would make some key sackings because you just haven't hit the performance targets, right? You see it all the time in the city, right? If a company isn't doing well, they get rid of this. Look at Elon Musk recently, right? He starts going to the Doge and then all the shareholders like, what are you doing? You need to come back and fix Tesla because you're ruining the stock price. Come back or we're going to boot you out and get someone else in, right? So he has ended up going back to the company. I hate that guy, by the way, but I'm just trying to point out an actual case of like what kind of happens here. And, that never gets really asked and not a lot. They're killing their own brand value. If they do want to sell the club is now not worth as much as it is, and yet they keep making kind of these horrific decisions. Now, as I say to you, as Kate says, we don't own the club, we don't put the money in, right? But we can see this kind of stuff, and I keep saying that if they at least communicate with the fans, we would actually give them, I think, way more of an easier ride about it, because we'd like to say we'd be in it together. And it's funny, like they mentioned that, like, I wouldn't wish supporting Leicester upon anyone else. But at the same time, I would say that, like, we've seen a lot more ups than many other teams. I think recently, some other teams like West Ham and Crystal Palace have finally started to see some success. Like, I was actually fair play to Crystal Palace. After all those 12th place finishes, they finally got themselves a cup. They deserve it. Got some friends who are fans of that, and it's quite a good club. West Ham the same. They've been up and down a lot in the Premier League era, and they got themselves that European win, even if it was quote unquote just the Conference League. So now we can't even have that, but at least we did have some kind of good times. But the bad times that are coming back.
Yeah, I mean, let me, Kate always talks about what Plymouth did recently. I'm not bringing up the big full one that they did, but I am going to bring up the smaller one they did about Miron Muslic. I mean, you see here, look at this statement.
Yeah.
Argyle can confirm that we have reluctantly allowed head coach Miron Muslic to open talks with Schalke. Despite regular communication since the end of the season and no mention of any issues, Miron has now made it clear that after extended periods away from his family, he now wants to. This provides him a chance to be closer. We are frustrated by this decision, having implemented clear structures, processes, and personnel to aid Miron and his coaching staff as we look to return to the Sky Bet Championship. Not only that, the club have also moved quickly to bring in new signings and received repeated verbal promises from Miron that he was committed to Argyle and would do everything to help.
Sorry, look, can I just interject here? But to be honest with you, I feel like Susan Whelan wrote this for them. I don't think this is a good statement at all, to be honest with you. That's exactly the sort of slop you would see on the Leicester City by King Power. That, in my opinion, that's very
exactly
weak.
With Enzo, when Enzo left,
exactly.
Chelsea,
that's exactly... something went wrong. It's not our fault. Don't blame us. Don't look at the fact
shaming. The guilt shaming towards Enzo, and they were trying to look at our processes, look at our plans that we made. We've been in regular contact. Everything was fine. What happened in January window under Enzo? Where we had Stefano Sensi pretty much at Seagrave, and you lied to him about not getting the finances over the line. So don't sit here and tell me you've been honest and you've been showing clarity to Enzo at the time, and then go and produce a statement like that.
Yeah, but I think this is where I turn into a bit of a happy clapper, because this is where I turn into Graham. I'm going to grow a beard and get a scarf, right? Literally, right. I think we're being hypocrites here, because we would love something like that right now. That would be a start.
Yeah, but paramount, the main thing I want is a club operating properly. Yes, when you communicate with the fans, it establishes some sort of a connection. But we weren't getting that under Vichai. But we could see the actions that were taking place behind the scenes, and then seeing it come to life on the football pitch. So we were okay, Vichai's on it. He'll sort out the plans and stuff. He's got the recruitment strategies in place. He's got the right people there. All right, leave him to it, and I'm sure we'll get things done. So we never really had to go ahead and question it. We never had to sort of hear from him, because we were seeing everything that was being done on the football pitch, which is, what really matters here. So yes, you can communicate the fuck ups that you've done, but that doesn't really gonna turn me from a stance of not wanting this regime to change, if that makes sense.
But it's a start, right? It would have that type of thing would be a start right now. I mean, let me come to you, Ethan, because I'm on board with Ragsy and Anil. Yes, Enzo Maresca wasn't. We didn't do much to keep him around. We pissed him off quite clearly. The club pissed him off. But he did Enzo did orchestrate the contract signing of Yannick Vestergaard. Enzo Maresca also turned down the chance to go on a preseason tour to America, and then he left us. But he dropped us in the shit to some degree. Yeah. He did.
Yeah,
he did drop us in the shit.
No. If you're the board, right, you can. No one is saying that you can't be frustrated or you can't be annoyed or disappointed, right? You can't. You can still be those things, but you're ultimately the people in charge, right? Other people are looking to you for answers, not for you to be soppy or crybabies. When Enzo left, we could have all done with the club statement saying, okay, we're disappointed with his decision, but we accept that there was compensation fee. We'll be looking for another manager soon. Even now, I think a club statement saying, oh, we're disappointed with the results on the pitch. It's not enough, right? You can't just be disappointed. The fans want more than just a crybaby or disappointed ownership. But you say we've regrettably been relegated. This has not been in our plans. This is now the new strategy going forward. So you can have the negative message, but you need to reply with a positive or a new sort of mission or something going forward. So, okay, that isn't the best statement by Plymouth, I won't lie, but at least they said we want to get back into the championship, right? There's a mission there for them. So if the fans don't get or aren't happy and they don't get promoted, they said, well, you said we'd get promoted, we're not promoted. Now they can be justifiably angry. For us, there's no, we're going to go back to the Premier League and it's just we've confirmed our place in the championship. And it's that sort of lack of accountability, lack of responsibility, lack of really stepping up that the club really needs right now, right? You need real leaders. I think we've been talking about there's no leadership in the dressing room. I don't think there's any leadership anywhere in the club. I don't think Ruud is a good leader. He seems to be throwing his toys out the pram. I don't think Cody or okay, Ricky is a good leader, but he might be leaving. They aren't real leaders. Vardy's gone now. Top, Radkin, they aren't good leaders. So you need some ambitious people, some people with charisma that can face the music or come through stormy times. And it's a real test for the top level management now, because they need to see out the storm and take us back to more prosperous times, better results, in the Premier League, more sustainable results as well.
Yeah, well, let's end on this. Let me bring this up. As people speculated, it has now been confirmed that today the three clubs who were relegated, Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton, have transferred back the share certificates that gave them Premier League status, and the Premier League board has confirmed the cancellation of these shares. A new share certificate for each of the promoted clubs has then been signed by the Premier League directors and company secretary. Blah, blah, blah. As a result, the confirmation of the three promoted clubs as members of the Premier League has taken place, with the league formally welcoming them by awarding them their framed share certificates. So we are now officially the a championship club again. Let's end it with this question. I'll go around to each of you. Keep it brief. Anil, does today mark maybe the day where we will start to see a bit of movement, hopefully, from the club?
Yes, but I don't think it's going to be the sort of movement you like. I mean, if you've got diarrhea, you get a bit of movement down there too, don't you?
Lovely. Yeah, a good comparison. What about you, Ethan, mate? Do you think we'll start to hear things now that relegation's officially confirmed?
Nah, I think only after 30th of June, when the financial year ends.
Oh, man. I'm so scared that's going to be the case, man. They can't do it to us. They can't go to the 30th. It can't happen. What about you, Ragsy? What are you saying, mate?
They can. No, I don't think we're going to see movement. I'm with Ethan until the end of the financial year. And well, yeah, we talked about Michael Carrick, and he's now a free agent, so maybe that's the priority all along, just getting someone on the cheap. So yeah.
Jesus Christ. I thought I was miserable. Now I listen to you lot. I was just checking as well, because I think officially the new favourite for the Leicester job is Sean Dyche. So there we go. He has moved into the number one spot, 2-1. Obviously now with Russell Martin going elsewhere. So 2-1 Dyche, 3-1 Danny Roll. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Hopefully things start to move now. And yeah, as Planet Earth says, I suppose, yeah, it's a long ball game. Right. Thanks to Anil. Thanks to Ragsy. Thanks to Ethan. Much appreciated, guys. We will be back soon. We'll have a video on Friday coming out with Rob Tanner. But yeah, stay tuned. There's a video out now if you haven't seen it yet, from a bit of a rant I had this morning. But yeah, cheers all. Take care. Enjoy your evenings. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.